Did you know 10 wizard facts about Walt Disney's The Sword in the Stone by Jim Fanning? Timeless in its humor, music, and classic Disney animation, The Sword in the Stone ascended the throne in 1963 as Walt Disney's 18th full-length animated feature. A scrawny 12-year-old boy, nicknamed Wart, who is in actuality the future King Arthur, sets ancient England on its ear when the mystical but lovably muddled Merlin, the incomparable wizard as Walt called him, uses wit and wisdom as well as wizardry to teach the boy who would be king life lessons that will ultimately lead him to extract a mighty sword from an enchanted stone. A sparkling holiday gift for fans of Disney animation, The Sword in the Stone was released on Christmas Day, 1963. Let's crown our celebration of animated enchantment with these royally magical facts. Number 1. A legend is sung of when England was young. Our story, said Walt Disney, takes place at a time when England was ruled by might alone. But Merlin can see into the future. In fact, he's been there. And he knows that a time must come when brains will triumph over brawn. So he sets out to educate the future king in his own peculiar way. The film is based on T.H. White's widely read novel, The Once and Future King, first published in 1938. Legendary story artist Bill Peet introduced the book to Walt, who obtained the screen rights in 1939. Various attempts were made to develop the story over the years. In 1944, Walt announced that the film was soon to go into production and storyboard drawings were created as early as 1949. But 2 decades would pass before work on the film officially began. Pete knew adapting the complex book would be a challenge. Getting a more direct storyline called for a lot of sifting and sorting, he revealed. Walt questioned the first version of my screenplay, pointing out that it should have had more substance. So I made an all-out effort by enlarging on the more dramatic aspects of the story. Pete remained true to the sophisticated wit of the original, resulting in a humorously told tale, contrasting the 5th century with today's modern muddle. Number 2. Walt was an inspiration for Merlin. In adapting the literary work, Pete incorporated Walt Disney, his own personal wizard, into the character of Merlin. Walt the wizard never knew that I patterned Merlin the magician after him when I wrote the script, Pete later recalled. In his book, T.H. White describes the wizard as a crusty old curmudgeon, argumentative and temperamental, playful at times, and extremely intelligent. Walt was not a curmudgeon and he had no beard, but he was a grandfather and much more of a character. In my drawings of Merlin, I even borrowed Walt's nose. Number 3. Milt Kahl, master of magic in motion. Given the richness of the personalities, The Sword in the Stone was one of master animator Milt Kahl's favorite projects. I liked the characters in The Sword in the Stone very much, said Kahl. We made Merlin kind of a doddering magician. I thought that that's where he had his charm because he was so bumbling. Fellow members of Disney's elite 9 Old Men animation team, Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston, wrote that Kahl's Sir Ector and Sir Kay were the best humans ever done at the studio, as they were done without benefit of live action or the support of reference material. For the wacky but wicked Madam Mim, Kahl added touches and bits of business that made working on this wild witchy character a truly enjoyable experience. When the Sword in the Stone director and fellow 9 Old Man Wooly Reitherman saw Kahl's first rough drawings of Merlin and Mim, he remarked to the animator that they could be displayed in a museum. His response was vintage Kahl. Ah, you're full of it. Number 4. The voice of the wizard. Voicing the role of absent-minded Merlin was versatile performer Carl Swenson. Skilled at creating vocal characterizations from his extensive career as an actor during the golden age of radio, Swenson was also in more than 100 television show episodes, and is most well known for his recurring role as Lars Henson on Little House on the Prairie. The actor returned to the Disney studios to appear with Ron Howard and Vera Miles in The Wild Country in 1971. Number 5. The Wizard, the Owl, and the Rabbit. Junius Matthews performs the crotchety voice of the educated but irritable owl Archimedes. In addition to many appearances on the Broadway stage and television, This multi-talented actor performed hundreds of varied vocal roles on radio. Carl Swenson recommended Matthews to Walt, pointing out the versatile actor had provided the voice of a potato on a radio program. However, he was originally cast as the voice of Merlin, but then switched roles with Swenson and became the voice of Merlin's owl. Following The Sword and the Stone, Walt cast Matthews as the voice of Rabbit in the Winnie the Pooh featurettes. Number 6. Laughing It Up with Archimedes. In animating Archimedes, supervising animator Ollie Johnston brought to life one of his all-time favorite scenes of his own animation, the scene of Archimedes convulsed with laughter when Merlin crashes his model airplane. Johnston and Frank Thomas later wrote that Junius Matthews sustained this infectious laugh for over 20 seconds without at any time letting it feel forced or insincere. By the final scene, both the actor and the owl were completely exhausted, and Archimedes could only point feebly at Merlin and finally slide to the floor, where he rolled and gasped for air. Merlin, who had bickered with Archimedes throughout the picture, could think of no way to retaliate other than to puff on his pipe and look very irritated. Number 7. A Magical Menagerie. Animals play an important part in the film's mostly human world, for, as Walt explained, with his wizard magic, Merlin changes the boy into a fish, then a bird, and a squirrel, always very small creatures, so that his survival will depend on brains and not brawn. Transforming into animals is at the center of one of Disney's most brilliantly animated sequences. Storyman Bill Peet gave us the Wizard's Duel, reported Thompson and Johnston, a perfect use of animation, maintaining personalities through a surprising change in forms and exciting action. In this fast-paced skirmish of wizardly wits, Merlin and the underhanded Mim try to outwit each other by transforming themselves into a series of unexpected animals. The animators created 15 different visual personae for the battling magicians, with each creature maintaining the personality, visual characteristics, and even color scheme of either Merlin or Mim. Number 8. 3 voices, 1 Wart. The voice of the story's young hero was Ricky Sorensen, a talented teenager who appeared in many classic TV series of the time, including Hazel and The Danny Thomas Show. When the young actor's voice changed over the 3-year production time of the film, director Reitherman drafted his own sons, Richard and Robert, to complete the vocal role of Wart. Number 9. Boy Meets Girl Squirrel. In one of the most unusual sequences in Disney animation, Merlin changes himself and Wart into squirrels where a lovely little girl squirrel falls for Wart, unaware that in reality he's a human. The sequence was originally to focus on the squirrels trying to avoid the hungry wolf who was seen at different points in the film. But the performance of the actress providing the chattering voice of the female squirrel changed Frank Thomas's entire concept for the scene. Thanks to her charming vocalization, Thomas transformed the sequence into a bittersweet encounter for animator, characters, and audience. When Walt saw Frank's animation, he suggested that a granny squirrel be added to pursue Merlin. Thomas was so fond of the squirrel sequence, it was screened at his memorial service after he passed away in 2004. Number 10. Sword, Sorcery, and Sherman Songs. The Sword and the Stone was the first animated feature to include songs by Disney's newly signed songwriters Richard and Robert Sherman. We enjoyed it immensely, said Robert Sherman of conjuring up 6 songs for the magical motion picture, because with animated films, the songs seem so much more important to the entire storyline of the film. For example, a most befuddling thing is Merlin's way of explaining the mysterious force of love in the squirrel sequence. Higgidus Figgidus is one of a long list of Disney songs demonstrating Walt's love of coined words. In this case, Merlin's magic sayings. We didn't want to say abracadabra. We just wanted to do different words, explained Richard Sherman. And so the conversation was, he's British, and we have to have sort of a British sounding magic, and also it's sort of Latin because he's very into Latin and Greek. The Sherman's songs helped composer George Bruns receive a 1964 Best Score Oscar nomination for his inspired Sword in the Stone musical score. So now you know 10 wizard facts about Walt Disney's The Sword in the Stone. Thank you for watching. See ya.